Okay. Good evening. Thank you for being here with us. This is Cody. I have the pleasure of having Lydia Dominguez here with me. She is part of Lexit. She is a veteran, and she's also an author, a Christian author. So thank you so much, Lydia, for making time today on Sunday evening. Please introduce yourself to us. What is it that is your role in Lexit? Thank you for your service, first of all. I believe you were in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for having me. My name is Lydia Dominguez. I am a baby of a brand new veteran. I just separated from the Air Force. I served for 10 years, and I'm very proud of my service. I have two boys. I live in Las Vegas, and I survived a very rough relationship with domestic violence. And during COVID, I sat down and had some quiet time and wrote a book, and it was published in 2021.
Well, that is something I had not read that part about you. Congratulations in getting through that stage of your life. Domestic violence is something that I also take very dear to heart. I am part of an organization here in the area that I'm in. I live in South Texas in the McAllen area, and I'm part of an organization called Angels of Love, and we help victims of domestic violence try to rebuild their lives, try to get them out of that relationship of domestic violence and getting them the legal aid that they need as well as shelter. A lot of people don't see it. I mean, it's something that is common and they see it like it's too common, especially in the Hispanic community. Unfortunately, we see that a lot, and we are taught to stand by our husbands and be there. Is that something that you saw in your own
I did,
life?
and
Or?
I know that's not our hot topic, but it is, and I felt so passionate about it, so I sat down and wrote it, and it was very cathartic for me. It was a long marriage. It was a lot of back and forth, especially going back to court, and then
Mhm.
going back into that relationship, and then going back to court, and it was very hard. And once I broke free, I saw that it was a lot, and I put my kids and myself through a lot, and I'm very happy to be out of it. So once I sat down and wrote the book, and COVID changed a lot for me in 2020, and it made me very political, and I've never been political in my life. And just going through everything that we all went through during COVID,
Mhm.
made me, start looking at how can I help? How can I be part of a campaign? How can I help save America? How can I help save the situation that's going on? And so I reached out. I met awesome people from the Lexit crew, and I started supporting campaigns and candidates. And
Mhm.
it just started me in a whole new whirlwind of stuff to go down in my life. And I'm very excited to see where it leads.
Well, we're glad to have you on this side. One of the things from this show, I really don't have a script. I really don't. Once I start talking to you, I will ask, or you can ask, and just be free to speak about whatever you want to talk about. But one of the things that I wanted to ask, so you were a former Democrat. Is that why you're on Lexit, or?
Well, yep, I was a former Democrat. I grew up, in very Latino community. My mom spoke English, but my dad spoke Spanish, and so I grew up Spanglish.
Mhm.
I grew up. My mom. I remember listening to an ad on TV, and we were in. Actually, we were in the car. It was on the radio, and I just asked, what's a Republican? What's a Democrat?" And she looked at me. She turned around and was like, "Mija, the Democrats are for poor people and the Republicans are for rich people, and we're poor, so we're Democrats." And
Mhm.
that's the way it was for my whole life. And even when I got out of high school and was in college, it was still like I just had been raised that way, and so I always voted. I voted for Obama twice. I truly believed he would bring hope. I truly believed in him and wanted you know peace and love and everything else that came along with, it's not the red states, it's not the blue states, it's the United States. And I truly wanted that. I wanted to save the American dream. I was, young at the time too. Um, but it really, how do I explain this? Like, it was a lot of things just similar, like a lot of other Latinas I see in their families. When I'm talking to them, I tell them, like, my grandma, she told me, she's like, Mija, if you need to go to school, you need to learn, you need to be educated, because then they can take away your car, they can take away your house, they can take away the money in your bank, but they can't take away what's in your mind and tu mente. And
Mhm.
it really and every time I say that out in a speech somewhere or talk to people, I always get somebody looking down at their phone, and they go, what? They said that to me too. Like, and we all grew up that way. And whether my grandma labeled it as socialism or communism, that's what it was. And they raised us in a conservative manner. And whether they meant to or not, they
Mhm.
knew what evil it was and what it could cause. And so, looking back at my childhood and looking back, like, wow, like, all the things I experienced that led up to this point, and for me to join Lexit. I joined Lexit because I just wanted that movement. I am, I'm very excited. And I don't think I'm just a Lexit member just because I was a former Democrat, but I do enjoy, bringing people over to the good side.
Mhm.
Um, but I think about it and I'm like, man, we all have those values, and still we were all raised in similar manners. Like, we shouldn't be pulling ourselves out of this cycle of abuse, this generational cycle that we were told, hey, my grandma voted Democrat, my mom voted Democrat. Well, you need to vote Democrat. Like, at some point, we need to break this cycle of abuse. And as a person who's been through abuse, I've
Mhm.
all about breaking those cycles.
Mhm. Yeah, and the repetitiveness of like the cycle of abuse, or you think one way but you still keep doing the same cycle. I I was born in a Mexican Hispanic family. My parents were both Mexican. I am a Mexican. I became a citizen, a naturalized citizen. But my parents were not involved in politics. My dad, I mean, he tends to lean to the Democrat side, but the way my parents raised me, despite of the way he leans, is to be a conservative, to vote for the working class, to not vote for handouts, to vote for the pro-life. I am a Catholic. I'm a strong Catholic, and I believe in the pro-life movement. I don't believe in abortion. I don't see a case for abortion, but I have always been a conservative. It's hard for me to call myself a Republican nowadays because the Republican Party doesn't fully represent me. I think that it's been taken over. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. And it's not, I'm a very concerned conservative because I see people that are leaving the Democrat Party, coming into the Republican Party, but bringing in the values that they had as a Democrat. And it's one way that we have lost the conservativeness of the Republicans. We have people that have become elected that are voting for amnesty, that are voting for welfare programs. What is your take on that? Is that something that you see, that you left the party, but now the Republican Party is not what it was, or how do you see that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny too. I have memories of my mom and dad fighting because my dad was going to go volunteer at the school for a political campaign, and I remember signs in the back of his truck, and he had to go deliver them, and he was going to be at a polling station. I don't even know who the person was. My dad passed away when I was 12, but I have those memories of them,
Mhm.
just arguing like, oh, you got to pick her up, or whatever, as parents. But I remember him volunteering and being active too, whether it was fairly certain it was for a Democrat, but I don't know what candidate. But I see different all shapes of people. I see people that are just, they see the light and they are full on no longer Democrats, and they're now Republicans. I see even the little ladies, my jefas, that are like, I can't support this one candidate, so I'm voting Republican, or I can't support
Mhm.
some of them, and so they're picking and choosing between candidates, and that's fine too. I think what we're starting to realize is that like our values really do matter. And as far as I always felt like once I became a Christian, I was raised Catholic. Don't get me wrong, but I was, once I became a Christian and I no longer cared about the view of the world. That's when I became a conservative. And I always tell my kids, if the Republican Party separates from those conservative values, those Christian values, then I will separate from them. And right now, I feel like the Republican Party most best represents my conservative values, and that's why I'm supporting them down the ticket.
Okay, you see, and I'm in the different. I live in South Texas. This is a very Democrat area.
Yeah.
So the people that I have, the person that's running for Congress in my area, in south of my area, were Democrats before. They only started voting Republican in the past couple of elections. So I don't believe that they represent me.
Yeah.
I am not going to vote for those Republican candidates. I cannot go down the ballot. I'm not voting for Abbott. I'm not voting for congressional race. So it's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, just go down the ballot. When down the ballot, they're voting for Democrat things. Monica de la Cruz, who is my congressional candidate, she's already said that she's going to vote for amnesty. Mayra Flores won a special election. She voted for amnesty, her first vote, and she voted for the jab. She also voted and brought in more welfare into our area, which is a very, very low income, poor area. And that doesn't help when you bring in more welfare programs. So that's one of the things that I myself am debating with, because I see that the strong conservative that was once there in the Republican Party is no longer there. Are you seeing that in Nevada or anywhere near your area?
I am. I know definitely for the primaries, there was a lot more of that type of situation where you had a Democrat who switched over and now they're running as a Republican. But I didn't see any of them win through the primary. I actually am from. I was born in Juarez, but I was raised in El Paso, Texas. So I understand. Your city is probably blue as El Paso, Texas. And I, kind of here in Nevada, we have a lot of transient stuff going on. We have a lot of people that come through and they stay for a little while and then they leave. And, so they're not really into, the politics or being interested in the elections here. And so that's one of our bigger problems. And then when you come to the candidates, it's almost like mafia style out here in Vegas. Everybody's related to somebody. There's some kind of connection between restaurants and casinos to an elected official, and it all goes down decades of history, which is really, really hard once you start breaking it down. As a voter, how do you digest all of that information? It's too much. And so what do? You just look at, okay, well, do I trust the name? That name has been around for years. Sure, let's trust the name. Or do you go and, like we did this year, is we actually had no empty seats. There were no empty Republican seats. So we did not hand over not one seat. We're making them fight for every single seat here in Las Vegas. And, whether they're going to make it or not, we want to put up a fight, because we just can't, I understand like Governor Abbott, and, I really do. But the alternative, right, is Beto O'Rourke. And I'm not sure that would be much better than Abbott.
And I get it, and people do tell me that. I mean, you have Abbott and you have Robert Francis O'Rourke. But the thing is that they're getting money from the same donors. Abbott is a pure election mode candidate. He doesn't do anything but when it's time to run for office. I live next to a border town. You know what that's like in El Paso. Again, I mean, they come in here and they get moved up north. And he was also a big part of that. And even though they have always been moved up north, he used that as an election ploy. When you move all these illegals up north, you're just helping the problem. You're helping the cartels sell their tickets into America, because, we'll get you across the border and the governor's going to send you where you want to go, further into the country. So we have people, they're Americans, in the northern states who can become victims of these illegal aliens. I talk a lot to angel families, and I have several friends that are angel moms or angel dads, and they talk about the dangers of doing that because that illegal is not supposed to be there, and that's how most of them, lost their loved one. So when we talk about the governor race, we had three other very great candidates. We had Dunn Huffines, who's a huge conservative, Alan West, and Chad Prather. We had those three great candidates, but and a lot of people wanted Abbott out, but for some reason, election interference, I want to say, I don't, Abbott got the majority win. There wasn't even a runoff. So the GOP is pushing their candidates, putting money into their puppet so we can vote for whoever they want to put there. And I'm not going to give my vote just because they have an R next to their name, when that R doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, unless you want to call it a rhino. But Abbott is not the conservative that a lot of people think he is. He sold our state. I mean, here in the state of Texas, we have the Texas Constitution where he can close the borders. Kerry Lake is already advocating for that, but he never did it. He had 4 years under Trump to secure the borders even better, and he never moved. He waited until it was his time to run for office to do a what is it, a political advertisement, just to get the optics on it. He
Yeah.
has. Uh-huh.
We have almost the similar problems here in Nevada as far as the GOP pushing certain candidates, in front of us, right, and trying to shove them down our throats. And I try to take a deep breath and hope that there's not this evil like emperors in front of us, behind the curtains, pushing these people. But I agree. Not all men are perfect. These men are not perfect by any means, as far as if they've already been in politics. But I would rather vote for someone, even though I know they're not perfect. I would rather them than the alternative, because Governor Sisolak in our state, he shut down our schools. He shut down our schools for a whole year. And so while Texas was open, our schools were still shut down. And then after that, we had about 8 months of wearing a mask. It wasn't until it was politically, politically not correct to wear a mask. That's when Governor Sisolak took away the masks. So we have a whole 2 years of a little generation of children that are exhibiting crazy behaviors as far as not being able to read and pronounce words when they're reading out loud. We have teenagers and just even kids that have graduated who are exhibiting really odd behaviors as far as like trying to accelerate, trying to catch up with the life they lost or missed out on. And so you've seen a lot of kids that are like, just going out of the way to risk, right? And so we have a lot of kids that are, overdosing in fentanyl and overdosing on just drugs in general. I just heard about this what you call the angel baby. Was it Blue Angels or Angel?
Which one? The angel families?
Angel families. That's right. Sorry. I've just recently heard about this, and I think that is the most tragic thing ever. Here in Las Vegas, we had on the Strip at 11 a.m. we had a man who was illegal, and he came and did a mass stabbing on the Strip. He stabbed 8 people, and 2 people died.
The showgirls. One of them was a showgirl, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was 2 showgirls, and they were taking a picture, and then they asked him for money, and I guess the language barrier, just not understanding that, what was the situation. And then he turned around and started stabbing them. He stabbed both of them. One of them died, and then passed buyers, another person died, and then so it ended up being a total of 8 people, and 2 people had died, which is incredibly. When you start breaking that down, it's like, wow, we can't even be safe in the morning on the Strip anymore. Like, that is scary. And
it is. And there's a lot of people around there where, you should feel safe when there's people around a lot of times, because you're not out in the dark jogging or something, or going home at night. It happens broad daylight.
Yes, and Las Vegas Metro does a really good job of like making you feel safe because they have a lot of presence on the strip. But I mean, it was incredible how many people he stabbed so quickly and so violently. And when you think about these our government can put a fence around the Capitol, but they can't put they can't put people like even just military members to say nope, go back, turn around, you're not coming in through here. You know,
Mhm.
that's it angers us. It angers me and it angers, I'm sure, like you. Why Governor Abbott didn't do that, I'm not sure. I really hope he would. I really hope he would activate the guard, or
Well,
there's so many things he could have done. We could probably
mhm.
list all the things.
The
Um,
National Guard is in the borders, but they're not doing anything. They're there to protect the illegals, not the Americans.
yeah, and we're not.
They're
They shouldn't be babysitting. They shouldn't be backing up. Border Patrol should be protecting the border. We should be able to untie these guys. They're so overregulated. We should be able to just let them go and do their job. But instead, they're babysitting people. They become taxi drivers and they become babysitters for all of these people that are flooding our borders. They can't even keep up to catch the people that are actually bringing the drugs over. And that's scary for me. I know Vegas is kind of like a central hub, kind of like Houston, where a lot of human trafficking, a lot of drugs come through here, and then they disperse all over. And like you said, it might not be a good reason to ship immigrants out into different locations, but
Mhm.
I kind of thought it was an interesting way of getting attention for obviously it was politically motivated, but when you're shipping out immigrants to Chicago, to the front steps of the vice president, to Martha's Vineyard, it's pretty interesting how quickly they reacted and how quickly they became a non-sanctuary city or non-sanctuary state, and how suddenly they're preaching a different tune. Because these people come on camera and they're like, yes, we love immigrants. You're so racist. How do you not want immigrants? Well, Eagle Pass is like a tiny little town. How the heck do you want 50,000 immigrants to come through there? They don't have the capacity to handle that. El Paso sure doesn't have the capacity to handle that. I'm just, we're just really worried. It's not about the people that we're catching. It's about the people we're not catching.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot illegal aliens that come through. I've gone and I've seen the caravans arrive back when Trump got in office, when they started flooding our border, and he put a stop to it. And all he did was enforce the laws of the country, and that's what we need to do in order to stop these illegal aliens from crossing into our borders, because they they they're not supposed to be here. We need to stop the immigration for a while, even the legal, because we are so overrun right now. We don't have room. So to me, that about yeah, they send a message, but it's you're still putting in danger the lives of other American people by shipping over these illegal aliens, and it's they're helping the human trafficking, and that was something that I was very disappointed that they were doing, because they were putting other Americans in danger. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was fun seeing this other mayors from other cities see what we're going through, but you're doing that at the expense of other Americans.
yeah, I totally understand that, and I think that's why they did that, to just start the conversation.
Hmm.
Because as much as like the media tries to twist it, Texas and Florida, the people they shipped over there were families. They didn't ship over there the people that are coming through the actual borders. They didn't ship over the coyotes. They didn't ship over the drug smugglers. They didn't ship over the young men that are trying to sell drugs, that are trying to sell children, that are passing, that are doing actual human trafficking.
Well,
They shipped over families, and yes, I agree. It is a burden on the American people, and it is
mhm.
putting things in puts everybody in perspective, puts the city under pressure. But they're not. It was just to show that they can have they have it's not the same as how Texas and Florida are handling it. That these
Yeah.
little like Martha's Vineyard, I mean, my goodness, how many mansions do they have available? and they're saying that they don't have the resources. They were actually able to fundraise in like 18 hours, $40,000. Like,
Mhm.
who does that? There's no way Eagle Pass would ever do that. Like, why would we? I just don't understand how the media starts screaming about, oh my gosh, these governors are terrible. And, what are you kidding me? These people could have had a great job here in Martha's Vineyard. You guys could have offered them all sorts of resources. Eagle Pass, El Paso doesn't have these resources. And you guys are just shipping them off to an Air Force base in 24 hours.
Mhm.
That's almost saying then that they're not worthy of being here.
Yeah, it's very hard to see, and it's very because even the people that come over here to work and try, they become if they don't pay the coyotes or the cartels, they become in debt with them. So they are pushing drugs in order to pay the cartel back whenever they can't pay them. So even the person that wants to come here for work, or the women, the children, either for sex, trafficking or drug pushers, is how they pay the cartels back.
Yeah,
So
which is
it's hard.
Yeah, and it's just the cycle, right? That they can't break through, that we're struggling breaking through it for them. It's
Mhm.
never going to end until we put a fence up and put our wall up for our borders. And as somebody I was born in Juarez. My parents brought me over here illegally, and they started the process almost as soon as they could. I became a citizen when I was 14. um, I am grateful to be here. I am grateful to be able to live the American dream, to have served my country. But even my parents, when they came over here, they also they did the paperwork correctly. They didn't coming over here illegally. But we all want the American dream. We can understand why these people want to come here, but at the same time, I understand why it's almost like a weird generational shift we're seeing my generation, right? The people that are here, that are young, the millennials, that are like, okay, I see this, and I see that that we don't want to go back to Mexico. We love it here. We're living the American dream. We see that these people want to live the American dream. We love that. We want that, but we want to protect it, and that we can't protect it when we're having so many unvetted people coming through the borders. And unfortunately, the only way to protect it is by voting the majority and getting the Democrats out. And that's the only way we can push into these more stricter laws, into our not even push stricter laws, just enact the laws we have, like you said. If I were in Texas, I'd be voting for Governor Abbott. Here in Nevada, I'll be voting for for Lombardo, Sheriff Lombardo. I'll be voting for Adam Lax. I'll be voting red all the way down, just because of that. We cannot give them any leeway, and we have to stick together. And that's the problem. A lot of Democrats, they don't. It's like a hive mentality. They don't question. They don't, have any infighting as much as the Republican Party. They all huddle together like bees, and they support each other. And in the Republican Party, I'm seeing we all kind of have our own little ideas, and we all have our own little perspectives. And yeah, we have the same goals, but we want to get there differently. And then that causes fighting, and it causes division. Here
I
in Yeah.
I see it as the conservatives, the true conservatives. We have priorities and we have our set ways. And my vote is my vote, and they have to earn it. If they haven't earned it, or if every time that they run for office, they have to earn it. Just because they put an R next to their name doesn't mean they've earned it, because they go in and they vote the Democrat way. So what good is it to vote for a Republican if they're going to vote the way the Democrat votes?
Yeah, that's so true. And it's kind of we kind of have a little bit of an opposite problem here. We have a lot of libertarians, and so a lot of people that are registered libertarians, but when you knock on their door, when you talk to them, they're very right leaning. They are very right wing people, and so once they're voting libertarian, and it's like, okay, wait, so you're voting, you want to bring in the libertarians, which I love the libertarians, I really do, but it's just about the numbers. It's really about math here. We're trying to get somebody out of office like Governor Sisolak,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't do that unless we have the numbers, and we have to unfortunately stick together. We can't just you know, a lot of people here don't like Sheriff Lombardo. And, you know, I won't go into more detail about that, but you know, as a Republican, as somebody that wants Sisolak out, I will be voting for Lombardo because we need those numbers. When you start splitting the numbers up, that's when you can't go back and you go, well, I didn't vote because, you know, I didn't trust any of them. Or
Well,
in
it's
fact, if you say I vote for the other person, the libertarian, it's almost like your vote didn't even count because it's going to
it,
go.
you know, I care more about my values and my state of mind, and knowing that I didn't devalue my vote for someone that doesn't represent me, than saying, oh, well, you know, at least we have a Republican in there. We have a gentleman that is running in the Del Rio area as an independent. He was a GOP chairman. He started the GOP in that area, and the GOP did not want to back him. They decided to back Tony Gonzalez, who votes as a Democrat, being a Republican. And he is running as an independent because he is not going to devalue himself and let himself vote, you know, for Tony Gonzalez. He needed to get on the ballot, and he is running as an independent. And I think that we do need to send a message to the Republican Party, because we are fighting the money of the Republican Party. It's not only the Democrats that are bad, but there's a lot of bad within the Republican Party as well. You see what they did to Kathy Barnett in Philadelphia with Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is not a conservative. He doesn't represent what the true values are in the conservative party. So why should we be giving you know what, why should I be giving my vote to the Republican Party when they're putting these crappy candidates that are already sold out, that are going to be the mouthpiece of Kevin McCarthy, who turned his back on President Trump, Lindsey Graham, all these people that have turned their backs on the patriots of January 6th. I am not going to contribute my vote to those type of candidates.
Yeah. And then, you know, we have to just stop and look at, you know, these candidates that they keep putting in front of our faces. So here in Nevada, you have to have voted in that election cycle to do a recall. And that's what kind of gives me a little peace of mind, I guess, when I'm unsure of a candidate or I don't fully support them, but I'm voting for them, is that I'm going to be voting. And as soon as you know, cross a line, or as soon as you know, do something that is acceptable to recall, you know, we're going to be doing a recall. And, you know, that's kind of like something that I've been keeping in the back of my mind, is that, you know, these candidates are not perfect. They're fallen. They're not going to be perfect, but we have to be able to do a recall if you fall out of line with that. So that's what keeps me, that's what comforts me, I guess, in my vote. Because if you don't vote at all, you can't be part of the recall process here in Nevada. You have to be, if you wanted to do a recall on Governor Sisolak, you have to have voted in 2018. And so if you didn't vote in 2018, you don't get to be part of the recall. So it's harder, yes, but at least if we get a Republican in place, we could recall that person faster, because there's going to be more Democrats that are going to sign that recall than we could, you know, as if we just didn't vote for Republican, we just voted independent. Then we're going to stuck with the same Democrat governor, and it's going to be harder to get him out. So it's a tricky process when you think about it like that. And I know it's hard to think when, you know, oh, if we do a recall, that might not even work. Yeah, but it's more of a possibility to keep that in mind versus just knowing that there's a Democrat in place that I'm never going to be able to work with. I can't call his office. I can't, you know, ask one of his appointed members for help, because they're going to know I'm a Republican and they're not going to support that. I'm very, very weary they're going to bring masks back into place. They're going to start implementing, you know, just more COVID restrictions. And it will keep me from getting a job with the state. It will keep me from taking my kids to public school. And, you know, I just don't want to go back to that. So that's kind of where I'm worried about.
Well, tell us, let's switch the subject a little bit. Tell us about your book. I want to
yeah, so I have it right here. It's called Don't Turn Back. I wrote it as a survival guide. It's not a memoir, it's a survival guide to help women go through domestic violence. There's so many reasons why women go back. I went back 7 times. And it kind of goes through each of those reasons, finances, attorneys,
Hmm.
feeling like a bad mom, feeling like a bad Christian, feeling like a failure as a wife. And I kind of went through each one as far as like attributing how to overcome that, how to not feel in that way, and how to pull yourself out of that. There was so much physical violence, mental abuse, and the worst one that stayed with me for a while was financial abuse. And it took me a while to pull myself out of that. And there was, I don't know if you've heard of Dave Ramsey, but I'm a huge
I have his
fan.
book. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I listened to him on the radio. It was too poor to get the book for a while, and then I got the book. But I love listening to him, and I just it's like your old fashioned grandma's advice, just kind of advice like your best friend would give you that you wish you could talk to, because even your best friend, it's sometimes hard to talk to people, and you don't want to tell them everything because you're ashamed or embarrassed, and it's kind of written like a best friend's guide to get out of that.
Yes, and one of the hardest thing also is the emotional abuse because they make you think that nobody else is going to want you, nobody else is going to help you, that you're stuck, that that's all you have, that's the person that's going to be there for you. And it's domestic abuse is a very real problem, and it happens in every type of economic level, and especially in the lower income, and we see that a lot down here. And like I said, it's trying to get those women the courage to get up and leave. But it's like you say, a lot of women don't get out because where are they going to go? They don't have the resources because the husband is the only working one, or he locks up all the resources and they can't leave. And it affects the kids as well because they grow up thinking that this is a normal way to live.
Yeah, and it is. It's really hard. We went through a lot of counseling with the kids.
Hmm.
We really did. It affects children as much as people say, "Oh, kids get over it." And they don't. They need to talk to people. And you as an adult need to talk to people.
Hmm.
And it happens across all types of classes, races, genders, and abuse is not just solely one class. And education too. You don't have to be the most uneducated or the most educated person. It will affect people,
Hmm.
even at the highest levels, all the way down. Unfortunately, it hurts the most vulnerable, right? That are in poverty and they can't pull themselves out. And so this book was kind of a guide, and it has a lot of resources and stuff that I put together and learned over the years. I did put myself in a pickle when I would go to court, and then I would go back to him, and then I would go back to court, and then I would go back into the relationship. And so it looked, to the court like, oh, this must not be that bad. And I had an attorney, and she was amazing, and she stuck by me. And there was a lot. He had me in like family court, criminal court, federal court. Like we were all over the place, and I was able to finally get out of that relationship, separate, divorce, and that's why I moved out to Nevada, to Las Vegas, to start over.
That's a good place to start. But do you go out speaking about this event? That's where you do your speaking events about this part of your life, the domestic abuse?
Yeah, so I was starting, and then we were doing a lot of podcasts, and it kind of slowed down because of COVID, and then they opened back up, and then I got too deep into politics.
Hmm.
But I haven't started back up. Next year I'm planned as a speaker at one of the conferences, so I will be starting back up. But I've just been, I find people on Facebook on different avenues of my life, and I love handing them out a free book if they're going through something. If something's wrong and they're trying to get themselves out of it, I will give you a free book, because I'm not here to make money. I'm just trying to spread the message.
I'm gonna have to get Bianca your contact information or have her share mine because that organization that I'm a part of is it's Angels of Love, and we do have an event where we're gonna have a conference, and we have victims of domestic abuse come and talk and to kind of encourage women and show people what the signs are, because sometimes there are signs and we miss them, or how can you help that person become stronger. It's not only what we do is not only for domestic abuse but sexual assault, and that's what I've been a victim of. And as well as we helped the younger generation, the young girls in high school, detect a bad relationship, because a lot of times these relationships start when they're young. They form this cycle of being in an abusive relationship, and they start seeing it as normal. So they might not end up with that boyfriend from high school, but when they meet their future husband, they look at those traits the same, or that's the way, dad used to treat mom, and they see it as normal. So we try to educate, the girls when they're in high school, the young boys, on how to treat a girl, how, not to fall into those cycles as being an abuser, or them, being abused too, because there are men that are victims of domestic abuse as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so I had my son at 16. I met that's when I met my ex. Looking back, I really think dating is important. I think there's a lot of things that come with courtship, and like you
Hmm.
said, understanding red flags. Like sometimes people think, oh, that's a funny quirk, or that's maybe the way they are, but you know, people don't. I guess we're not taught that anymore. We used to be taught that. I don't know if parents just stop talking to kids about, sex and relationships and marriage. But it really is important to understand who you're dating and who you could possibly
Hmm.
raise kids with, who you could possibly sharing money with. It's very important to know what they are like when they get mad, or when they're frustrated, or when they're sad, um,
Hmm.
because money will cause you stress. That's not a that's not new information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having that, feeling that, I it was so funny because when COVID happened, all these like little restrictions, right? So like you can't go out, you have to stay inside, and you should only send one family member to the store, and if you can, do drop off delivery. And at first it was like, okay, yeah, we don't want to be sick, we don't know what's happening.
Hmm.
But then I really started to connect the dots to my own abusive relationship, and I really started to feel like this is a little much. Like this is too much. I started seeing my son was starting to spiral into suicide ideation. He was just laying there and just didn't want to get up. He was very depressed. He was, saying things like, I just wish, I could just fall asleep and never wake up, and he wouldn't necessarily say he wanted to hurt himself, but he just was just giving up. He just given up on life.
Hmm.
And I just felt like I was so upset with how everything was going, and feeling so trapped. And after I had just separated from my ex and found some new freedom, I get locked down. And so by the government. But I what I first thing I did is I got the kids out of school. I dropped out. I started homeschooling them. We started going out. We started going hiking. There's so many beautiful places if you ever come to Vegas, that are beautiful to hike in. And we just started going out of the house. We just started being more active. And I really did see so many connections between the amount of power people felt they had over you. When you go
Hmm.
into a grocery store and they're yelling at you, put on the mask or get out. As a woman who's been yelled at and hit, um and just told and called so many names, it really did re-victimize me. It really hurt me to see these
Hmm.
grown ass men yelling at me. And I there was a point where I started coming into the store open carrying. I've never open carried in my life. I wasn't raised even that way. And I started open carrying, and that really made people stop talking to me. That made people back up.
Back off.
And
Yeah.
it was really for show. It really was to show people, you know, I might be a girl. I might be 5'4". I might be I won't say my weight, but I might be a little small. But you know what? You need to back up, because I'm here with my kids and we're getting some milk and eggs. Like, back up.
Hmm. And
And
that That's one of the things that people miss to talk about during COVID. There was a lot of women that were stuck in their homes with their domestic abuser, and there was the domestic abuse rates were high, but they don't report on that. The suicide rates were higher, and they don't report about that. My daughter became extremely antisocial. You know, the kids changed. She was the schools were closed down for a year down here too, and that made him withdraw from friends and just, you know, be in the room gaming and do different, you know, just she doesn't like to be around people. She's starting to get better, but they became into this world of solitude, and that is not good because we need to socialize, we need to be, you know, interacting with people. And all these women that became more abused in their home, there was, you know, suicides, and even children that were that, you know, that their school was their getaway from their abusive parents, and they didn't have that anymore. They were at home 24/7, and driving the kids, their abuser, even, you know, more crazier than what they were.
Yeah, it's kind of it's eerie thinking about it. I had a neighbor who was having mental health breakdowns, and you could hear him screaming and just screaming obscenities and nonsense. And it was really heartbreaking to think about all of
Mhm.
the unreported child abuse cases, or all of the women that are trapped. And unfortunately, I've looked. There are no numbers. They don't have the numbers
Mm.
because those women couldn't seek help or didn't seek help during that time. And so the numbers almost seem like they're lower because they didn't go to the shelter. They didn't go and seek, at some kind of housing or some kind of resource. And
Yeah.
so our numbers are really lacking, and we can't really, the data is not there for that, which is very sad. And I know there's so many situations here in Vegas that I think about, where there's murdered children. There's children that are that were hurt by their parents, and they don't discover them until months later, where grandparents are reporting this child has been missing.
Mm.
And that was about one case, but there's so many stories here in Vegas. It's really heartbreaking to once you get into the suicides. I think there was 24 suicides here that year, in 2020. And typically we do have a certain number of suicides, I would say. But when you're thinking about 12-year-olds committing suicide in their home, I
Yeah.
mean, it really makes you really sad and think about, like, why, what in God's earth are we doing? We
Mhm.
are forcing these children to stare at a screen, and we're only forcing them to stay there for 7 hours because we need the hours. We need to make sure we're providing the hours, or else, the unions, and then we have all these other problems with the state, with federal agencies, if we're not providing a certain amount of hours. So we need to provide that amount of hours, and then we need to teach kindergartners how to send out an email and send attachments.
Mm.
What?
Oh my,
What? That doesn't make sense. These
we
kids,
still have problems with that. I have problems with that sometimes.
I do too as an adult. Like,
Mhm.
I'm barely learning how to put my signature on an email. So it's just, I can't even imagine, like, what person sat there and thought, oh, this is going to be a great idea. Let's have 5-year-olds up to 10, just
Mhm.
sit in front of a screen and upload attachments, print documents, like sign color, whatever. It was awful. It was so
Yeah.
awful seeing
It,
my son. I could hear him. He was on the screen, and there was about, I don't know, 17 kids on the screen.
mhm.
And the teacher would say, "Okay, how was your day?" And then they would all go all at a time. And my son was just, he would repetitively say, "Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys," and no,
Oh.
like, everybody was just talking over each other. I was
Mhm.
so sad for him, and I could see his personality just spiraling and getting sadder and sadder, and I couldn't be part of it. I was like, no, this is not beneficial anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you. I can't be part of it. Like, I can teach you better than this. Like, we can read books. I don't know, we can do math. I'll figure it out. We actually got a math tutor, which was great. But
Yeah. It was a very difficult time also for the teachers. All my sisters are teachers, and it was hard because they're managing their own family, their own kids, to make sure that they're being taught while teaching themselves.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult time, not only for the children but for the teachers as well, and the parents. I am lucky my ex-husband is very, very involved with my daughter, and he took over that because him and his wife are teachers, so they took over that
That's
section. I was just like, okay, she's awake, she's okay, as long as she's awake and she's eating, I'm okay. But it was a difficult time. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I
Good.
saw so many similarities between just the amount of abuse that was going on when you're telling me I have to wear a mask and you need to stay home, and then I turn around and I see on the TV that there's thousands of people protesting for George Floyd, and then I see these doctors, I see Fauci, I see them saying, well, you know what? It's okay if you go protest. That's part of your First Amendment right. That's part of your constitutional right. You should
Mhm.
go protest, but yet you're forcing my child to stare at a screen for 8 hours. You're forcing my child to stay home. They can't go out. We have to
It's
wear a
because
mask.
the virus did not live during the protest. During the riots, the mask would, the virus was down. It wasn't able to survive that. It was when you're at home or at the school, or when you're at the local mom and pop shops, because the big stores were be able to be open, but not the small, restaurants and mom and the little stores. So there's certain areas where the virus was not able to live. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the way.
That's the way they sold it to us.
Yeah,
It's
the
funny here
pandemic.
in Vegas, you could actually go to a strip bar, but you couldn't go to church. So they made sure the girls were wearing a mask, but they could still be topless, and they could go, dance and do their services. But you couldn't go into a church, and that was really, really an odd time in Vegas. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I mean, these women,
Mhm.
I've talked to so many different people about it and different sides, and you're like, those women need to work and they need their money, and I'm like, yeah, but they're not getting paid as much as unemployment. They would be paying more in taxes if they're dancing than they are on unemployment. So, I don't understand this argument where they need to work. We all need to work. I
Mhm.
need to go to church because this is stressful. Like, this is really bad, and how can I not go to church? I was so disappointed. A lot of churches here in Vegas didn't stay open, and I was thankful enough to find my church that was open, and they were not going to shut down.
That's
But
good. Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of the pastors and the priests. I know mine was shut down, the Catholic Church, but everything was on Zoom, but it's not the same. It is not the same.
yeah, and you think about like the hypocrisy of everything, right? So you're like, okay, the strip that you can go to a strip club, but you can't go to church because you're going to die. Like, it was so wrong. And it's not like, oh well, they're like, oh well, if you sing in church then the virus could spread, but you don't think a stripper in your face is going to spread a virus also. Like, I'm fairly certain a lot of STDs have
Yeah,
spread.
because it's cleaner. The strip joint is cleaner than the church.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
we're getting close to the 3 minute, the 1 hour mark. I want to thank you again for being here. And what are your plans? Do you have any events coming up? Where can they follow you? Where can they get your book?
yeah, thank you. So we are working on the Nevada Lexit team. We're starting to try to build a group here, and also you can follow me on Instagram or my website. My website is Lydia Lydia Dominguez Doming GUEZ.com. And yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and we are trying to build up the team here and try to get it moving. We'd like to do like a turning point style of just getting all these young people activated and moving and getting them, moving into politics.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for the things that you do for getting people involved. We need to keep educating the people on how to vote conservative and how to look up the candidates and know what they stand for, and hold them accountable once they get elected. So thank you again, Lydia, and will get in contact with you because I would love for you to come and speak at one of my events for the domestic abuse. And I will get on your website and send you a note from there.
Alrighty, thank you so much. That went by so fast.
Thank you. I know, right?
That's so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm going to be live next Sunday again. I don't know who my guest is by then, but I will have somebody. And follow me on Getter. That's the only place that I'm at. Getter is better. I'm under Codi Kag at Getter. So I'll see you guys there. Thank you. Just exit, and there we go.